But hello, welcome everybody. Welcome. So, hi, I'm Marley. I'm the Director of Operations for Level Up EQ. I actually help Marla run the operational side of Level Up EQ, and I'm also going to be doing the operational side of these webinars and events. And now I'm going to introduce our moderator, kind of teacher, all around awesomeness, Marla, who is the founder of Level Up EQ and a master executive coach. And senior faculty member at CTI. For 2 decades, Marla has been training and providing executive coaching in corporate and startup venues. And in her 16 years of experience, she's worked in Silicon Valley with companies internationally as well, and focuses on serving teams in tech and biotech. So I'm going to pop it on over to her to go from here.
Thank you, Marley. And thank you, Marley and Nicole, because this would not have been possible without your love and logistics. So really appreciate your support. And my heart is beating getting to have the chance to talk about innovation and psychological safety. And I want to say a little bit about Level Up EQ. We are a company that is passionate about our purpose, which is to take leaders in tech and biotech to the next level of their leadership. And why that's important is that those industries are at the forefront of changing the world. And we need leaders that are psychologically safe creating leaders. We need leaders that have emotional intelligence so that those companies can really thrive. And so I'm very excited to have the opportunity to talk about, really this is about psychological safety, but psychological safety supports innovation, and really innovation cannot happen without it. So to that end, let me say what we're going to do today. We're going to talk a little bit about what psychological safety is and how we can create it. And we're going to have a little scenario. It's going to be an improvisational, interactive scenario to kind of give you an idea from the outside in a fishbowl. What does a psychologically unsafe team look like and what is happening? And then we're going to do a debrief on that and then send you into breakouts, because we feel what's most important is that you walk away from this interaction with ideas and accountability around what you're going to do to change your team. So that's what we're doing today. And I want to say this is, we've done webinars where we have hundreds of people on them, and this was meant to be small and intimate. We really want you to be able to interact, to ask questions, to feel comfortable and safe interacting with your breakout group. So if you're wondering why are there so few people, well, you're special. You got invited, you said yes, and so you get to be in a smaller group where real learning can happen. So I want to say a little bit about our interaction today. And psychological safety is important to innovation. If we're in a room and everybody's nodding their head, then we know that we're not in the innovative space. We're in everybody's agreeing with the idea. Innovation is disruptive. It's uncomfortable. Oftentimes you can look like the person where everyone thinks you're stupid for saying what you're saying. It's counter to what's happening. That's the nature of innovation. So it needs to be a safe place. It needs to be a place where the interaction feels like there's some comfort level with being disruptive. And what we want to do right now is we're going to both use a tool that you can take off to use in your teams, but we're going to use it here. And we call it a designed alliance. I do that with my clients when I coach, and we do that at Level Up EQ with our clients when we coach. We also do this when we do team interactions. It's called working agreements, where we're going to set a safe container to interact in. So here is the first one, which this is an agreement we ask that you hold, which is that what gets said in this environment by other people about their organizations or their experience, that what they say is confidential. Now, we recognize that this is recorded. So for all of you that are sharing, share to the level that you feel comfortable sharing and knowing that it will be recorded. And again, confidentiality, holding it when you're talking about maybe another team that you think is dysfunctional, then please hold them in confidence and don't repeat their names and don't divulge information about them that would be harmful. Everybody agreeing to that? You don't need to say anything, just please agree that that's how you will interact. This is an interactive environment, so you'll get out of it what you put into it. Our request is that you chat your questions, you chat your observations, that you are willing to interact. We'll open it up at some points if we have time for actual live questions. So, and when you're in the breakout, be involved. Be willing to share your experience and also what you're willing to do to be different in your organization. This might be an uncomfortable one, and if you're willing to raise your hand and say, no, I don't want this, it would be great. That would be disruptive. But are you willing to be disrupted? Because this is disruptive. Being brave can be uncomfortable, which means you're disrupted. So if you're willing to be disrupted, don't say anything. If you are not willing to be disrupted, please raise your hand and I'll go put my eyes on the hand raising to see if that shows up. Okay, great. And please chat, what would you need in order for this to feel like a safe and courageous space for you to learn in? Is there anything you'd need different than what I've said so far? Please chat it. And while that is happening, if anything shows up on chat, the only other thing is that we are going to be talking about psychological safety and innovation. And if there's questions that are off that topic, we're happy to answer them either off this particular environment, either via another call or text or so forth. Oh, I love that. So will everybody assume good intent? That is, you know, even though someone might say something in a breakout group that might feel uncomfortable, are we all showing up to be our best selves and with good intention? Please, that would be lovely. I love that one. Okay, cool. Any other ones? Any other questions before we jump in? Okay. So, psychological safety. I want to read, I love this definition, and then I'll talk about what I think it is. Psychological safety is being able to show and employ oneself without fear of negative consequences or self-image, status, or career. That's a big statement. And to me, it comes down to psychological safety is about our willingness to risk ourselves, to risk. I think of it as being in not belonging, not being the same as everybody else, not feeling like, because it feels comfortable when everybody's nodding and grooving on your idea, you know, and yet sometimes we need to say something that is not going to be received necessarily. And it's risking ourselves, it's risking our connection to the group, and being willing to say something that might be different than everybody else. And that's very risky to our hearts, to our connections. And then of course it goes out to that more to our image, to our status, and to our career. And the risk factors, the things that undermine psychological safety, And I'll talk about those in a moment, but what it really comes down to is a lack of trust, that the system, whether it's a team, an organization, a one-on-one, that there's a lack of trust in the environment, that you cannot trust that other person or they do not trust you, that there's no trust. And the things that undermine trust, and people say, well, what's the difference between psychological safety and trust? I think trust is the foundation for that psychological safety. And so if we just think about trust and we work on trust, I think you'll go a long way to building psychological safety. Dysfunctional relationships, contempt, back channeling, shaming, being character assassinating, you always do this. Those kinds of relational behaviors are, eye rolling, turning over to the person and talking about what they're saying. All of those behaviors, snide remarks, passive aggressive behavior, all of those behaviors, and there's lots of them, I'm sure you have all witnessed, those dysfunctional relational behaviors are one big piece of what undermines trust and undermines the relationship and undermines psychological safety. And we all are like, I know I am. I've blown it and done that and hurt trust. We don't always do it because we mean to, but we have to start realizing that we need to be careful about how we interact with people, and we're going to blow it, and then we are needing to be able to make amends. So that's one big piece of what is the undermine of psychological safety and trust. The other is the inability to fail and have resilience around failure and have appetite for failure. Because again, it goes back to trusting that if I fail, if I blow it, if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to fail in some way, lose status, lose self-image somehow, and I won't be able to recover. So there isn't that resilience to failing. So that's another piece that I see. It's kind of those two things. The relationship needs to be there, and then there needs to be that resilience for failure, because we're going to have crazy ideas and they're not going to go. And then we can't make up a story that failure means I'm a failure and I can't risk and be brave. The other big piece of an undermine, and there's lots of other things that can undermine psychological safety, but we don't have a day and a half or 2 days to talk about it, but is that lack of equity, the positional power, diversity and inclusion, lack of access, inclusion of people up and down the chain of command, that all voices are respected for their innovative view. It isn't the VPs are the only ones that can innovate. Anyone can innovate. And so it's that lack of willingness to include people and allow voices to be heard. All voices, no matter how quiet they are, they can have a voice and have value in what they share. So those are some of the big ways that psychological safety gets undermined and or isn't able to thrive. And then that breaks down the willingness to be crazy, to think outside the box, to draw outside the lines. So how do we build it? How do we build practices that help psychological safety? Because at the end of the day, it comes down to relationship to one another, relationship to the system, meaning the team, the organization, at whatever level we're talking about. So as a leader, because we can point over there and go, that team is not psychologically safe. You are the one that creates the safety. and it is going to come back to you. So how do you build psychological safety in your team? So one huge way is to get to know your people, to have an interest. So we actually did a YouTube on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed, go subscribe to that, because we did a great video on the how and the what. The how is, how do we interact with that human being? The what is the work. So when we're in relationship, when we do a one-on-one, there needs to be some time dedicated to the how. Who is this person that I'm with? Who is this individual? What do they aspire to? What are they passionate about? What are they great at? What do they want to get better at? So it's knowing who they are, what makes them tick, who they are personally is a huge way that you can foster trust. Because if you, not as a technique, but as you have to find, if you're a people leader, you need to care about people. If you don't care about people, you should think about what you're doing. You have to actually care about that human being and their aspirations. And that will go and be curious and ask questions and get to know them and have one-on-ones that could be mostly about that. It doesn't mean always, but that you do some of it about the human being, because that in and of itself builds trust. Getting to know them, their purpose makes a difference, because they'll feel like, oh, wow, this person cares about me, not as a cog in a system, but about me. So that's one big piece. The other piece is having them get to know you and allowing yourself to be transparent and be human and be fallible and be passionate, and have them get to know who you are and what your leader purpose is. And if you don't have a leader purpose, you need to. And if your team doesn't have a purpose, you need it, because that helps not only people connect to something greater than themselves, which connects people to each other and a purpose that they can share in common. So you need to know what your purpose is and share it with people, and share it more than once. So yeah, I'm noticing I'm wanting to hear from people in here so far. Like if there's any chat, like questions or comments about what I've said, I would love to hear. And if not, it's totally fine. But I just want to hear, is there anything you're not?
I think, Marla, this is Hillary Wilson. Thanks for having me and holding this event. You know, one thing I've noticed over the last year or two is that some of the norms that maybe we were raised with in corporations around not really talking about personal matters, that norm is changing, right? So that you know, those maybe of a certain age might have been told, you know, we don't ask about families, we don't ask about backgrounds, you know, these aren't topics we talk about at work. And now, especially over the last couple of years, these are topics that we need to talk about at work to drive belonging. And so there's a change there for some folks that is needed in order to create an environment to get to know each other.
I love that. And you're so right. And hasn't it really changed because of COVID? Because now their personal life comes screaming into a meeting or barking into a meeting or whatever. This person is a human being and they have a life just like we do. And I love that you're pointing to it's been changing and it needs to continue to change. I'm always interacting when I'm coaching with the whole human being. They aren't just an executive. Whatever is happening at home is affecting their work, and whatever is happening at work is affecting their home. And it all comes in to view in the way they lead. So, and it also creates empathy when we know what's going on with another human being in their life. That creates connection, like you're saying, and it also creates empathy, which also creates trust, which will foster the innovation that needs to happen for us to be on the cutting edge. So I can't express enough that your interest in the human is going to be important, and your interest in your willingness to be human and open and transparent and fail and cop to your failures and you're not knowing. As a leader, that's magnetic for trust, because when you're a real human, people want to follow you, and being willing to be imperfect will be that for people. They'll be like, well, I can do this. If they can do that, I can do this. So you have to be the one that leads the way there. The other piece I want to say, because I love, Hillary, you're talking about how the human part has changed. How do I want to say this? In a hybrid environment, when we've got people on Zoom, people in a conference room, possibly people phoning in. They don't have access right now to Wi-Fi and a good signal for a video. So all of a sudden, the space, meaning the environment, is very different. It is not everybody in a room. And that does undermine safety, only because we already are struggling to look at cues, because we're picking up a lot of cues that make us either feel safe or unsafe. People's body language, people's eyes, people's energy, people's willingness to be involved in the conversation or not. And now we've got this second layer, which is now we're on a video, or some of us are on video. So you need to figure out, like, how do you create equity in that space? Are we all going to be on Zoom, whether or not we're in a room together? Some of us not, some of us are. If we're half in a room and half on video, and then we have a break, what are our agreements about what gets talked about? Because what happens often when we're all in a room together is then we go off in a break and we ideate and we talk and we have great conversations, or we have back channeling conversation, whatever. Like, if half the people aren't on that meeting now in the break, they're off in their house now. That is another way that psychological safety can be undermined. And how we need to open up is, okay, thinking about how do we make this more hybrid environment more equitable, and or the ground rules that have everybody have the same access and conversations. So we want to do a scenario with you, and most of you are going to be in outside the fishbowl, looking into the fishbowl, and we are going to have a mock team, and we'll spotlight those folks in the room, and you're going to get to watch a dysfunctional team shut down psychological safety and shut down innovation. That's ultimately what it is. So what we're going to want you to do as the folks watching the scenario is you're going to watch what's being done that breaks down trust and psychological safety. Where are the missed opportunities for innovative thinking, and what's shutting down that innovative thinking? So you really get to, I think of it's like really fun. You're a fly on the wall in that meeting, and you're going to get to see how everybody's misbehaving. And probably you're going to have a lot or a little bit of pattern recognition going, oh my God, my team does this. Write all that stuff down. Write down where you're seeing it, the trust in innovation and psychological safety is being stepped on, and what are the behaviors that are doing that. And you might also write down, how does your team do this, or how do you do this? And because that'll be great for the breakout group. Now, I want to say something about our brave mock team. They are all amazing leaders of service. They are acting and being bad actors at that. In this scenario, they'll get a chance, I believe, at the end to introduce themselves and know that all their misbehaving is not them, it's their role. So I want to make sure that the innocent are protected, because they're just being of service for us to learn. So here's our scenario. Think is a tech startup. They are on Think's leader team. And Think is going for another round of funding. And in order to be able to do that, they need to boost their profitability, make their cash flow look better. And the CEO has tasked the CFO to cut the budget by 15%. And it's in operating expenses. So that's what this meeting is about, is they are here to have a discussion about how that 15% is going to happen. Now, we have, and I think I forgot to say, the CEO is Florence. And so when you hear about Florence, that's who we're talking about. And the roles that we have in the room are, Kat is HR, the CFO is David, the sales and marketing person is Emily Ritter, the product person is Hillary, and Nicole is operations. So your job is to watch them play this out and see what happens. And I am going to now cue the scene, and we get to watch what happens.
Ladies, I didn't want to have this meeting. I sent you all a memo and I told you the situation, and I said we needed a 15% cut, and you all handed back to me a rather inadequate response. Now I'm going to have to sit down in that room with Flo and those venture sharks, and I'm going to have to somehow justify this cut, and I don't have the numbers or the rationale to do that. Now, y'all know I'm from Texas. And in Texas, we have this little phrase for when we're turning bulls into steers. We call it nut cutting time. And that's what we're doing here today, ladies. I need some nut cutting from you. So we can either cut from the bottom or we can cut from the top. Impress me. What do you got?
David, I just want to say, I mean, we've talked about this before, but if you could just refer to us as women, not ladies.
Sorry.
I mean, we are your executive team.
I got it. I'm sorry. It's an old habit. Women, what do you got?
Go take care of the garbage.
Excuse me, Nicole?
Nicole, did you have something to say?
Oh, no, I was just telling my daughter to take care of the garbage.
Well, there's some garbage here too, so let's take care of it.
So what's our gap? What's the gap right now?
I do all the ads on this and I got 50, maybe 7, 8%, not at all close enough.
Could you tell us where
Hello?
those biggest cuts came
Yeah.
from?
I'm in a meeting.
Nicole, you should put yourself on mute.
Oh, okay.
Look, there's a lot of ways we can make cuts in this organization. I can just cut heads. But I asked you to come up with some creative solutions, and I don't quite see that in the written material. So if you could be so kind, women, and help me out here.
Well, I spent a lot of time on the marketing and sales plan with my team, created a very, very detailed and thoughtful response to the prompt of cutting. And,
yeah. Could you bottom line it here? Because we are under a bit of a time crunch.
Well, it's just unclear if everybody contributed 15% to their cuts, because we from marketing and sales created a very detailed proposal for our portion of the budget.
Well, I mean, Emily, it's not like a peanut butter thing, right? So some of us were more bloated than others, right? So I don't think we're spreading the peanut butter evenly here. And I think we all know that innovation and product development is really the lifeblood of the company. So
Totally agree with you, Hillary.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Hillary. I mean, I think this has not been an equal thing. I know, Emily's sales training team definitely got more already for their training and have been inching away at my training budget.
Okay, here, women, I don't want a bunch of squabbling here. All right. It's about avocado.
I think it's too late for that.
Do you realize that we buy 5 avocados per employee in this organization? That's just plain old ridiculous. That is way too much guacamole for what we're doing here. So I believe that there are avocados in each and every one of your budgets, and I want to hear about it.
Nicole, can you take on the avocado thing? Because I'm not sure, like that's got to be an operational issue.
That's a metaphor.
Oh, okay.
But we do constantly have avocados for everybody all the time. There's like a lot of excess in the office.
Well, we know from our experience survey, our engagement survey, that people, that is what they want, and if you want to take away benefits, boy, are you ready to see some real trouble coming out of that. Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, benefits are one thing,
Nicole, are we bothering your spare time? Because I don't seem to really see you engaged in this, and you have had the last 5 hires. So I think you have something very important to say to us around creative solutions for these cuts.
For what cuts?
The 15% that I want to see you cut your department.
Nicole, I mean, honestly, like
I can't cut 15% from here if you want to keep operations running smoothly. We work with every single department. We're intertwined with everyone. So if it's going to come from somewhere, it needs to come from the other departments.
Who do you think makes this whole company go? The people. You can't be cutting from my department. No way. It's always mine, right? HR is always the one on the end. Nope, I'm not giving up anything.
I actually don't
think it needs to come from Emily's. I feel like her sales budget is always bloated.
Hey, Kat, I mean, seriously, honestly, we didn't do the last reduction from your area. We actually did the last reduction in sales. So I just want to point out the fact that, without product, we're not making anything. Without sales and marketing, we're not selling anything. I think we could probably do with a few less,
unnecessary for us to be taking a look at history at this point. We need to be taking a look at the future. And right now, the future is looking a little glum right now because we are not going to get the next level of funding unless we find those cuts. Now, I kind of figured this meeting wasn't going to go very well, and I can just hand you the number of cuts I want from your department unless you can come up with some other kind of creative solutions.
David, I think you bring up a good point about the future. We are focused on, creating profitability for this funding round. We need this funding. I think we can't, throw the baby out with the bathwater for future growth that these new investors are going to demand for us after they agree to the funding round. So, that's a lot of what sales and marketing's plan that we brought to the table, including pretty significant cuts to what our plan was to both shore up current growth and enable us to invest in that future growth that we're going to need a quarter from now. So let's all just remember
your report was really good. Hold on a second, just a second. Wait a minute, I got a call here. Just a second. Oh shoot, Flo's moving up the meeting, so there's even more urgency on this. Emily, I heard what you said. Yeah, you did a darn good job with your report. I wish the others had come up to your level.
Thank you. Hillary, did you have something to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I wanted to say I really appreciated the work that you did. I feel very aligned with you in terms of what our future investors are going to be looking for in terms of investment. I don't think, when it comes to our next round of investment, those things like, parties or people training, the frills are what they're going to be wanting to spend their money on. I think they're really going to be wanting to spend their money on ensuring that we have a marketable product and that we have a sales force that can move it.
Yeah, especially parties, right, Kat? I think you kind of regret the last party we had.
Yeah, well, I can tell you in this market, good luck hiring anybody if you don't have any good things going on at your company. You want to get rid of your culture, then, good luck to you all. I don't think it's going to work out.
So we're saying we want to prioritize internal parties, but then not have a plan that includes engagement with the community.
No, I think you want to do some training, though. I think you want to make sure that people get paid correctly. I think you want to make sure that your salespeople are hired by good recruiters, correct? Do you want to make sure all of that, Emily, or does that really not matter to you so much anymore?
Let women, if y'all could move the conversation around to some creative solutions that you can implement within your department to get this this reduction, I would definitely appreciate that.
I think that if Emily and I just, take the 10%, we can figure out whether that's in heads or whether that's in program spend or marketing spend. And then, ops and HR, I think internally focused efforts need to be trimmed so that we can focus externally on the customer and the customer's needs in terms of what, their solutions are. You guys could take 20%. We'll probably get close to what David and Flo are looking for.
Not sure how it works out that we do 20 and you do 10. It doesn't really do that with me. Cut 20 so that they can only cut 10.
Well, it's not a peanut butter thing.
Hello?
It's really about who's more important.
Are you in this meeting, Nicole?
And time. We are.
Are you going to tune in and talk with us? Or?
No, it's time. We're stopping now.
We're
man.
Just when you were getting into it. Everyone in the room now, take a breath. Take a breath. I know for me, I'm squirming watching that. David is still spotlighted, I think.
David, I just want you to know that I'm not attacking you at all.
Please, I want you to know I'm not a chauvinist.
Okay.
I know. Emily, so sorry.
I had a CEO that was like this and I just channeled him,
Okay.
I'm not from Texas.
So hang on a second. You guys are so cute. Now I know we need to have a little green room to send you all to apologize to one another.
Seriously.
Yeah. So take a breath, leaders. And I want to acknowledge both your acting very good, maybe a little too convincing. And I would love for you to just briefly, I would like you to be able to introduce yourselves because you were really amazing and so appreciate your heart of service. So if you can say your name, your role, and then one word that describes you as a human being, not as your work, but just a word that you feel like describes you, and not in the moment as in I'm cringing, but what describes your best self, because I want people to know who you really are. And David, we'll start with you.
Great. My name is David Skibbins. I'm the head of training at Level Up EQ. Compassionate.
Yes. Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Ritter. I lead marketing at a very early stage startup called Vowel. One word I would say is creative.
Hillary.
I'm Hillary Wilson. I work at ServiceNow as the leader of marketing strategic programs. And I would say a descriptor for me is courageous.
Nicole.
Nicole Afton. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing for Level Up EQ, and my one word would be passionate.
And Kat.
Everyone, Kat Steinmetz, Global Head of Talent Success at Box. And my word would be harmonizing.
Wow, can we just like have a whole workshop on talking about what you must feel like right now about how that was, given the words that you used to describe yourself? So feel free, you wonderful team, to go off now and be in post-traumatic stress disorder from go lick your wounds. If you want to drop off, you're welcome to. And you're welcome to stay on if you'd like to stay on and continue in the workshop. You are free. I'm just so grateful for you. So let us open it up for a moment and hear, and would love for you to either unmic yourself and talk or chat. What did you notice about how the team functioned? How were they doing innovative thinking or not? And how were they building psychological safety or not? Or more probably to the point, how were they undermining psychological safety? Who wants to jump in? And it would be great if participants that were in the actually getting to watch the fishbowl would share as well.
I'll jump in.
Great. Who is this? Oh, great. Kristen.
I felt like the tone started out from David of you're the problem, fix the problem, you're the problem, you own the problem. And I think it kind of set the tone that nobody wanted to own it. It was like this thing.
Yeah.
And so nobody wanted to pick it up.
Yeah. There was a make wrong, right? That's when we talk about the relationship is you're wrong, you've got to fix it. Yeah, great. Who else?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ulysses Garcia from Irvine Unified School District. I'll kind of just piggyback on what Kristen was saying. I think the tone also gave this sense of like fear.
Yeah.
When there's that in the environment, it automatically stifles innovation, creativity. And so everybody kind of shuts down. So that's something that stood out to me.
Yeah. I would also say that fear, there was a fear and there was a sexism in the room, calling everybody ladies, which kind of is, let's put a lid on their power in a way, to be, brilliant thinkers or whatever. I saw that and was like, that was a blowback for me in the space. I'm sure that the leaders in the room felt that as well as they were being addressed. Yeah. So what else did you see, y'all?
Trin, VP of People Power at Lunderclose. We're a fintech startup located in Iowa. The tone right away was just very condescending, and it was very clear that no one was respectful of each other. They were talking over each other. Nicole in ops was, chatting on the phone and giving orders to her daughter. So I think just overall, it was very clear they did not respect each other's time, nor did they respect each other's ideas or plans.
Yeah. And did you see where there were alliances or people were ganging up? Yeah, that happens. And I saw that happening as well.
I think the really important question is, did Nicole's daughter take out the garbage?
I had to actually tell her that she didn't really have to do it because she went to go do it. It's not trash day. She was confused.
I'm Kenlyn. I am VP of People and Culture at a tech startup in Baltimore called Kudo. And the thing that struck me was in addition to everything that has already been said, which I agree with, is the lack of control people appeared to have over their own departments. Other people were making decisions about, oh, we're going to cut from your department. That lack of authority and ability to influence the success of your team. Why would you invest and engage at that point? Like, of course, you're going to kind of disengage and try to protect as much as you can. So that other side, they can't take responsibility if they don't have control. That other side was really clear too.
Yeah.
I think another piece of this whole thing is that it wasn't put within a context. It's like the context was, the fear of not getting funding, and rather than the context being the mission of the corporation as a whole, or the nature of the culture of the organization. It was all reduced to dollars and cents and percentage points.
Yeah. Yeah, not purpose-based at all. Yeah, that's great. Has anybody been in a meeting like this? Yeah.
I was had a little bit of a PTSD myself.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting probably a decade ago where it wasn't about an investment, but there was an ask, right? And I still think of that team, and again, I think it was probably over a decade ago. I still think of that team as one of the highest performing leadership teams I was ever on, because and the president leader really set the tone for, look, we're all in this together. And that was the tone from the very beginning till the end when we achieved the goal. And it was all sort of, what do you need to be successful? What do you need to be successful? And the leaders were asking each other, what do you need to be successful? What do you absolutely need to achieve your strategic objectives this year? And versus talking about what I need, right? Sort of being other-centric versus self-centric.
Yeah. So we want to break you into breakouts and start to think about, and I think, Marla, are we going to provide a little worksheet for this? Yep. So we're gonna chat, because Hillary, you're kind of going to looking at, well, what are the best practices? And I want to say, for each of you, it's not over there. The psychological safety starts with you, and how do you set a tone, and then how do you influence others to set that tone of safety and trust. So we want you to go off in a breakout group and think about where does or do these behaviors show up in your team. So really be willing to have a look at that. And what are the one or two things that you're going to do differently to foster psychological safety? We really want you to walk out with a list of things you're really going to do differently, whether it's get support to create more psychological safety, or what will you do yourselves. Welcome back. Welcome back. So we want to hear, I think what I want is cross-pollinating, which means you all, though you've shared some in your group, but I think it's both cross-pollinating and being publicly willing to say, what are you going to do that's different? Because one of the questions is, what's one or two things you will apply and do differently to address the team that you're on and how to build psychological safety? So I'd love for you each to share, or whoever feels comfortable sharing. What are you going to do different?
Don't everybody all go at once.
I know, right? I was just about ready to go. That would be you all out there. Start choosing people.
You actually, Marla, I thought our group conversation was great. And I hope I didn't talk too much during it. Maybe that's why I think it's great. No, it wasn't. It was an excellent conversation. But Marla, when you dropped in, you pointed out that setting the context for psychological safety work is really important for leadership to understand, like, why we're doing these things that may feel a little goofy. And I think that's something I tend to blaze right past often. So I'm going to revisit that with my CFO and CEO before kind of reset the stage a little bit.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. And you might have to do that more than once.
You're totally right. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can share something that I have to remember is that as a leader, we're human and we make mistakes, and sometimes we don't want to broadcast those, but modeling behavior is important. So acknowledging those mistakes, and even if that mistake, whether it's in your work or maybe it was in a conversation, making amends all of those are things that are emulated from the people that follow you. So I think that's something that I'm continuing to work on.
Yeah, that's great. And I would say, as you're saying this, I'm playing off Kenlon, that setting the context there is important too, because it isn't like you want someone to pat you on the back and tell you you're okay for having made a mistake. I want to share this so that we all have comfort in sharing our failures. I had a failure. I said this thing to you, and I know that wasn't the right, or whatever it is, you know, that you say it for the sake of, not that, oh, I'm a bad person, and then you get a pat on the back. You're not bad. No, that's not what we're doing here, you know. Yeah.
For me, it's easier for me to build a psychologically safe environment for my own team. They're looking to me to set the stage. They're looking for me to, you know, show them what is acceptable behavior. So it's easy for me to be vulnerable with them on a regular basis. I tell them, "Oh my God, I can't believe this mistake." On a regular cadence, I'm asking them for help. But when I work with my executive team, I can't, right? I can't be the weak link. I can't ask for help because I have to know how to do this. I can't be vulnerable. I can't make a mistake, because the moment I make mistake, they're going to say, "Oh, that's the people team. The people team doesn't know our business." So I think my takeaway is to kind of combine being vulnerable, but also sharing the context, so that I, you know, encourage my peers to also be vulnerable and leading by example without giving off vibes that I don't know, you know, what I'm doing.
I love that you're saying that, because obviously that team is, because, you know, I'm just promising you, there are other people on the VP team that are thinking the same exact thing you're thinking. Oh, if I show vulnerability, they're going to think I don't know the business. And you need to be a champion for people, which is, hey, we need to talk about this stuff, not because I'm blowing it. I know you're all blowing it in places. And we need to be willing to do that so that we can be better thinkers and better ideators. You know, that way you're being a leader of vulnerability instead of, oh, I blew it, you know. So that's great.
And it really points out how incredibly lonely it is in the C-suite, because they're all having that same agenda, and they don't have the people that their small little team that they can get support from and give support to. They're all in that very icy kind of cold world where they have to perform successfully or it's trouble.
Or people going, why am I following this person?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I long struggled with a CEO that couldn't get his head wrapped around goal setting and hated the idea of goals, because God forbid if he didn't hit one. And the idea, I could talk to us blue in the face, but it could do nothing to set into his head that we have to have a marker to move towards, or we move towards nothing. And it would be rather, let's move in the right direction. Even if we don't get all the way there, we can come back and figure out why and then replan. But so it's that level is so caught up in themselves about not being able to perform, because they're so afraid of what people below them, even though they're at the highest level, they're afraid of what everyone below them thinks. And so I always try to screw up as quickly as possible. I try to get it off, not because I have an ego, but like I screwed up. And I think that was cool in this role is my CFO looked at me and was like, "I don't expect you to do anything for the first couple of months because you don't know us. So don't think I want you to solve anything. I just want you to observe." And there's things like I want some input on things, but I don't expect you to do anything for a couple of months. And that was cool that he took that pressure off of me, and helpful. And now it's kind of like, well, how do I spread that love and propagate that through the business?
Yeah. And we have to think both in terms of how do we be, and then what are the programs, the processes, the systems that foster psychological safety and trust. I mean, it isn't good enough to just say, I was talking to one person about this program and she's like, yeah, our CEO is talking about trust, but there's no avenue for trust to get developed. You know, we can't just say the word trust and everyone's going to go, okay. We have to do like what Kenlon was saying. We do our icebreakers or whatever it is. We have to put systems in place. And when you say that, Glenn, it's like, what's the systems in place to spread that love? That it's almost like that goodness of not that I don't, because obviously once person has been on your team a while, you expect them to produce, but how can we allow you to have room and bandwidth to go for it, fail, produce, hit a dry spell? How can we support you? You know, that we're here to support your development as a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I would offer as we were wrapping up our breakout session, Ulysses reminded us of, I think, the importance or the value of having open office hours, right? And I've ran those, and I've encouraged my leaders to do the same, because that is the avenue for you to understand kind of what's going on in the organization, not just for us in HR, but for the leaders to hear it, you know, just directly from the employees, right? So I think that's one of the avenues that's really helpful in terms of, because the leader might feel like he knows what's going on in the organization, right? He's going to make some decisions based on assumptions, but not until you really go down there and speak to the employees. You know, do you really understand kind of like, what is the culture? What are they, you know, what are the challenges? Right. So I really appreciated Ulysses bringing that back up, because I think it's a really good channel to start, you know, for leaders to use in terms of really tapping into what is the vibe in the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In regards to kind of those office hours, so I meet with all of our new hires on an individual basis when they join, and I have something similar to office hours as well. And my office is pretty much always there's usually always someone in my office, which I'm extremely proud of. It means I'm approachable, right? But what I've noticed is it's kind of created some tension amongst the leaders, because they're like, ooh, what's my employee doing talking to HR? What's my employee doing? Why are they talking to her? Why aren't they coming to me? And it's created this, you know, although it's created this immense bond between myself and our staff, it's kind of created a wedge between myself and my peers and their leaders. So I'm curious, to those who have had, you know, similar office hours or whatnot, how you navigated that with the individual's leaders.
Yeah, so I'll respond to that, because I've done it, and I've also encouraged the leaders to do it. And they've been appreciative, right? Because they understand that there are times that employees will want to have conversations with HR that they may not feel comfortable having with them. So, but I always try, it's all about transparency. So my leaders know that we're having these office hours. I've encouraged them to have the office hours, right? And then what I do with the information, because I work in partnership with the leaders, is like, you know, I bring forward, you know, just some of the issues that are percolating, right? And we work on it together. So if it's a specific team where I'm getting a number of issues, right, you know, I have the information, but then I put it together in a way that, you know, doesn't single anybody out, but then talk to the leader about, hey, this is what's happening in your function. This is something I need you to lean into to help resolve, right? So that's kind of how I use it. Not as a place for folks to just come and vent, right? I think about it more strategically than that.
Yeah.
And I would say also, like, because if ultimately you're wanting to also foster the relationship of the direct report and that leader, as opposed to you being the one that people always go to, it's how do you help develop that trust for that team? And how do you help them not triangulate? Because you're a triangulation at that point, where they really should be going to the leader, but there's a lack of safety. And we do that. What Joy was saying, when we work in a system, oftentimes we will bring system themes to the leaders and say, here are the themes, here's what's going on. But ultimately you want to create a system that can be self-cleaning.
Yeah.
And how do you say, well, how might you say that to your leader? How might you be able to, not that I'm going to say it, but can you, what would you need to do in order to share it? Not that it's not okay to come to me, but ultimately for you to grow as a leader, you have to have those brave conversations with that person.
Yep.
So that's the other thing. So that then, and you share with the leader, hey, I'm working on them building their trust and willingness to say whatever they need to say directly. Yeah, that's a process for sure.
There's a coaching element, right? That's also part of that, because the employees will be coming to you, and you do want to coach them in terms of, helping them kind of find the tools, right? So that they could have those conversations.
How might you do that? Exactly.
Well, I think the other side of that is assume positive intent. I always remind people, assume positive intent. Because if you don't, you start telling yourself a story in your head. I think this is a great topic, like, to read Crucial Conversations.
Yes.
And like it's don't make something up that you're not certain of. We don't know what they're talking about. But differently, all my managers know that I extend to every single employee. 20 years in professional services, largely. I've always made myself open to every employee to just come and scream at me if they ever have a tough day. I won't offer to solve their problem unless they want me to solve their problem. I won't give them a response to how to do something differently. But if they just wanted to come and just shout at me because they just got off a really bad phone call and they needed to vent something, that's what I'm there for. And then to allow them to go back to their day. If they just wanted to come and scream, like, the F word at me because they just got chewed out by a customer, it's you built up tension that maybe they don't want to express to their manager, but I'm their safety zone. And they could just go back to their day. So, and their managers know that I am there for that. So they could just be coming off just to let steam off, so they can go back and smile and drive revenue with our customers. So I think it's managers understanding of what you're providing to the broader population.
Context. Always context is good. So I'm gonna wrap up the conversation by saying thank you for your participation in this.
Thank you.
And you're welcome, and more to come. So I want to let you know, save the date for August 18th. We're doing a culture panel. I'm going to have some amazing people, including I believe it's the VP of leadership for Facebook. And we're going to have global talent management for Box. And so great people to hear about how they're managing this new life and culture in their organizations. And I'm inspired by hearing how you as leaders are in your organizations, and I'm inspired to continue to have these conversations because I think they're crucial to developing our whatever work we do into being the most dynamic and magic creating in the world. And people they're the ones that create the magic. And the more they're unleashed, the more they can actually create and be creative and innovative. And so I'm just really delighted that you stayed for the whole time and that this is something that you're passionate about, because it will do you such great good in the work that you do if you're putting your eyes and your attention on trust and psychological safety. So thank you for your attention and your passion about this. And on that, please stay in touch with us. We will be in touch with you. We're going to be doing lots of fun stuff. Nicole has us set up to do, I think, work on coaching in September. We're going to have a workshop on coaching, and we have also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Level Up EQ, which has a bunch of free content that are tiny snackable videos all about stuff like this around building your people and having great leaders be great leaders. So thank you. And on that, you are free to go. Thank you all for being here and have a beautiful day. Bye.